to Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of Daredevil Born Again Season 2, Episode 5, The Grand Design. It took her a whole episode, but Vanessa Fisk has definitely followed Foggy Nelson in getting dragged to hell screaming by the MCU's Lady Death. Let's go back through this nostalgic episode scene by scene for the details, Easter eggs, and connections you missed. Before we begin, this Friday, New Rockstars is doing another live show. Friday, April 17th in Los Angeles at the UCB Theater. You can see us in person or wherever you live via a discounted remote link. This time we're doing a staged reading of the beloved Marvel film Morbius. Yes, the multi-billion-dollar movie. And trust me, a movie like this is going to be very fun to hear read aloud live on stage. Ticket link is in the description. We hope to see you there. Okay, episode 5, The Grand Design, opens with no cold open scene or sequence, just right into the credits of the cold, stony sights of New York City, followed by the imagery we never really see in a Daredevil series. Bright, sunny, tropical waves crashing on a beach with Vanessa and Wilson both dressed in white, holding hands as they walk barefoot on the sand. This is their island that they mentioned in episode 2 of this season.
We still own the island.
Yes.
When was the last time we were there?
I hate the feeling of sand between my toes.
Now, when I first heard about this island that Fisk owns, I had two thoughts. One, release the flight logs. And two, Marvel, I hope you turn this island into a mutant prison colony that becomes Genosha someday. Also, when you think about this, I don't know when Wilson and Vanessa would have been able to visit this island. In season 3, Fisk got released under a deal that he forced with the FBI, but was not able to leave Manhattan. He ended that season imprisoned again. Sometime after that was the flashback scene with Vanessa and Bullseye in Daredevil Born Again season 1, episode 9, when she said this.
The whole FBI corruption scandal agent, Nadeem, all that. It's why my husband was acquitted.
A line I always found to be logically sus, but whatever. And there was some gap period before Fisk's return in Hawkeye, and then his injury at the end of Hawkeye, and his recovery before Echo, and then the reunion with Vanessa in Daredevil Born Again Season 1, Episode 1, where Vanessa indicated that he had been away from her for a long time. But I do think that tropical Kool-Aid Man shirt that Fisk rocks in Hawkeye could have been from this tropical getaway with Vanessa to their island here. And maybe it was his hatred of sand between his toes that led him back to New York and Hawkeye, against Vanessa's wishes that led to their separation period referenced in Daredevil Born Again's first episode. But in this episode, the island and how tonally different it is from everything else we see on the series renders this as the kind of afterlife that Vanessa is slipping in and out of throughout this episode. A place that she longs to be with Wilson, but a place she can't be because, you know, he hates Birkenstocks. Back in the hospital room, the shard of glass from the paperweight still sticks out of Vanessa's temple. Crazy detail from last episode. After Fisk smashed that paperweight with his champion belt, in the shot of him pointing the gun at Bullseye, behind him in the background, you could already see Vanessa standing there with the shard sticking out, a shot that I believe was in a mid-season trailer even. So the fact that they teased it to us so early before the big reveal shot in close-up, I think hiding it in this wide shot was just designed to show how Wilson was so blind with rage, such a bull in a china shop, that he could not protect the delicate little things that he loves so much. And I still maintain that because Vanessa shot Dex right as he was throwing that paperweight, that there was a pretty good chance Bullseye's aim would have been off and he would have missed her, but only because Fisk smashed it. It's really the mayor's fault. A wider spray of broken glass flew at his wife. I pity the nurses and medical personnel who have to restrain Fisk here. He's still in his bloodied boxing outfit. Ultimately, it's Sheila Rivera and Daniel Blake who have to hold him back. Fisk tells Powell that he wants Bullseye and Daredevil alive, and Powell's like, I don't know how not to kill people. But he also tells the mayor that they've got the vigilantes surrounded? No they don't. But I think he's really just saying that they've closed up all the bridges, tunnels, and ferries out of Manhattan. And there seems to be an unlimited supply of task force goons, despite Dex and Jack Duquesne taking down like 20 of them so far, so that any fugitive vigilantes are essentially just surrounded so long as they're still in the city. Matt drags a wounded Dex into the kitchen of a restaurant with a pro-Daredevil staff.
Whatever you need, man, we're with you.
I assume Matt could hear some loyal heartbeats among these line cooks. After smashing through that Fogwell's gym window, it seemed like the broken glass chipped away some of the black paint of his armor, revealing the red that's still there beneath. With most Marvel superhero stories, we see upgrades and evolutions of the armor as the story progresses, kind of like a hermit crab outgrowing its shell and finding a bigger, sturdier casing. But with Daredevil this season, it seems to be the opposite. He armored up in black armor to match the dark armored soul of the city that he inherited upon Fisk's blackout at the end of season 1, and the redder his suit restores to, the more the soul of the city seems to be coming around to him. And I love how much of that seemed to come from a spiritual reunion with his father last episode. Fogwell's gym was where he chatted with his father's ghost Ghost in season 3 episode 9, and in the shot of him clubbing the gun out of Fisk's hand, you could see the old poster for Battling Jack Murdoch versus Carl Freel, which was Jack's final match. And another detail from that ending moment that you might have missed, or not if you were on social media at all this week, as Daredevil runs off after Bullseye, the angle of the broken window glass on the sidewalk looking back into Fogwell's with the two lights kinda looks like the head of the Watcher observing this moment. I mean, Disney Plus loves to insert the Watcher observing key moments in various Marvel animated titles, and you could argue that the thing that killed Vanessa Fisk that's gonna turn Kingpin as rageful as he is, and the moment that began Matt Murdock's forgiveness of Bullseye for killing his best friend, is a kind of Nexus moment that the Watcher would be interested in. Also, the Watcher just has a thing about broken shards of glass. That's kind of like the way he sees reality breaking. Throughout this video, I will be talking about how some higher power is certainly looking down on these characters as the grand design unfolds. As Daniel Blake stalls reporters over Bluetooth, the news screen behind him shows Fisk and Vanessa from the ball in season 1 episode 8 last season, right before Matt jumped in front of Dex's bullet that was meant for Fisk. The graphic then switches to Matterhorn Melendez, which I'm guessing is to report that boxer's death too. BB tries to get Daniel to share Vanessa's status, and he tries to hold off, but after BB hugs him, there's this weird shot.
She's in critical condition.
They're really lucky to have you.
Oh, that was some pretty obvious ADR there. That's where an actor goes in after the fact and kind of re-records all their lines so that they can dub over the scenes to get clean audio. But most of the time, you don't do it when characters' faces aren't on screen, at least specifically for very important lines, unless you don't have a clear shot or change something up in the edit. And Michael Gandolfini definitely did not say she's in critical condition on the take we see here. Like, notice how his jaw did not even move. And considering how important those words are to Daniel's entire storyline this episode, that he told this information to BB and then it leaked to the press and he thought he was going to be killed for this, you would definitely put a line like that in close-up. So either they did not get a clean shot of the actor saying the line, or maybe there was originally some other way this information would have gotten out to the press. I don't know. Dr. Murati tells Fisk that he's not certain where the mind meets the soul, which is some pretty metaphysical stuff for a surgeon to be saying, but it does speak to the visions that Vanessa and Fisk seem to be having back to their shared meet cute and to the recurring beach visions. Previously on this show, the aspect ratio would shift to signal Matt's heightened senses. Now it shifts on Vanessa as her subconscious circles back on the way that she met Wilson as an art dealer in a not that great wig to try to match Ayla Zurer's 2015 season 1 on Netflix haircut. Seriously, this looks like something from Karen Page's Master in Disguise collection. But Vanessa now lays eyes on the Rabbit in a Snowstorm painting for the first time. Yes, the iconic painting from Daredevil season 1 episode 3 that brought her and Wilson together. We never see the full painting in its totality until the end of this episode when we come back to the shots from the Netflix era, but instead here we see it in a series of extreme close-ups highlighting the chaotic brushstroke textures. This is really what Vanessa and Wilson uniquely see, rather than just a big rectangle of white, because they see each individual gust and scratch of that raging storm. For Wilson, of course, it reminds him of the painted wall that he would hyper-focus on while his father would be abusing his mother. But her boss asks,
Why should I put it up?
I don't know. There's just something about it.
yeah, her boss has some sassy response that makes me wonder, lady, why did you acquire this painting you think is so laughably unsellable to begin with? But 2015 Vanessa's gut tells her there is a buyer out there for this.
But I can tell you that if the right person walks through that door and sees this painting, sees his own deep, inexorable, miserable emptiness reflected right back at him, I can promise you, you can add 2 zeros to the list price.
So this tells us that part of Vanessa's attraction to Wilson was a kind of destiny fulfilled. She had an instinct and this mystery man affirmed it. And not only her insights as an art dealer, but her outlook on the depths of human nature and how anguished some people are capable of feeling. Today's video is sponsored by Straight Arrow News. This year is shaping up to be a big year for nerds. We are feasting! There's Daredevil Born Again, Spider-Man Brand New Day, Avengers Doomsday, The Boys, Lanterns. It's a lot to keep track of for anybody, but for me, I feel a specific pressure not only to stay on top of everything, but also to make sure I've got the right information. I don't want to spread a rumor thinking it's a fact or use any kind of outdated information. In order to make sure the news I read is factual and up to date, I use Straight Arrow News. Straight Arrow News gives you clarity, not chaos. It allows you to get a more complete picture from the news you read and better understand what's going on. Their reporting is unbiased, highlighting both left and right-leaning stories and delivering reliable news coverage on events across across all sides of the aisle for a full picture of current events, so you get facts, not fluff. Straight Arrow News is a free app and website, so you don't need to deal with a paywall to get your news. That's great, news should be free. Go to san.com/newrockstars to check it out. You can visit through the link in the description. When you visit, you not only support us, you're also supporting a group of journalists who are raising the bar on news by delivering news without bias, filter, or spin. Welcome back to trustworthy journalism. Meanwhile, Matt in the present day pushes Bullseye through a tunnel where Dex says that if Vanessa died, then in his mind, the scales are balanced for his murder of Foggy.
That night you threw me off the roof, I was supposed to die. 4-story, no one survives that.
Maybe that's the grand design.
The grand design is the title of this episode, and a phrase that we'll hear spoken by another character at the end of the episode. In general, this episode asks, are all events in life part of God's plan? And if they are we meant to know that plan and act according to it? Or is the whole point of that plan being grand is that it's impossible for humans to see the whole plan, and we really should not try to force forward our own parts of that plan. As a good Catholic, Matt certainly believes that faith and good works are the path to salvation, and that all sinners are equal in the eyes of God. We do not get to clear our own ledgers. Only a priest channeling God's forgiveness can do that via reconciliation and communion. So Matt is rather disgusted in Dex's perversions of this moral belief system. Dex says Foggy, and Matt, just like he snapped at Dex for bringing up Foggy during their fight in episode 4, now chokes him and tells him not to say his name. And from here, Matt goes into a flashback.
Even the best avocados have to do grunt work.
Guess we're gonna have to break it to Josie that we're not paying off the tab tonight.
She'll understand.
Avocados! A callback to season 1, episode 10, when Matt and Foggy, as legal interns after a night of drinking, recall a Spanish-speaking client who called them abogados, which is Spanish for attorney, which they mistook as avocados. Avocados at law. Yes, Eldon Henson is back this season as Foggy Nelson in this flashback to a time just before season 1 of Daredevil was getting underway. Matt is back to wearing the deep red tinted glasses that he would wear specifically in that first season. They talk about a client caught with possession of tons of drugs and how their boss Levine wants them to plead out. So this would be when they were still working at Landman and Zach before they branched out in their own firm, Nelson and Murdoch. And speaking of that, I am wearing this Nelson and Murdoch and Page shirt, which is available at our merch store, nerdright.shop. You can grab one for yourself or that special nerdy lawyer in your life and support our channel directly. Then they meet with their client, Lionel Ray McCoy, who grew up in the same building as Foggy and name calls him. He mentions a brother Connor who got into doing roofs and gutters and got some woman pregnant. Now, before anyone says this is going to be a Hank McCoy origin story, in the comics, Hank's father was a nuclear technician, Norton McCoy. But who knows? This would have happened before 2015, so considering the modern MCU is going to be somewhere around 2030, that would mean that there's some teenage kid with the last name of McCoy in the New York area. But if Jeff Snyder is right and Marvel is looking at the very Irish Peter Claffey for Beast, maybe this is all some hooey. McCoy explains that the reason Landman and Zach were retained is because the mob that Landman and Zach represent has guys on the inside of prison who are planning to kill him once he gets put in there. But this is not just a flashback from Matt's perspective, because now we just kind of hang out in this past time period and shift over to Wilson Fisk and James Wesley. Toby Leonard Moore returns for the first time since season 1 in 2015 when he was killed by Karen Page, but he's still alive here. Wesley mentioned that they might have a problem with the lion, I guess their code name for his first name of Lionel, and Fisk absentmindedly asks,
Are you familiar with Bitcoin? In light of the Russians, we should start diversifying. In this new world, we can no longer be old-fashioned in our way of thinking.
By the Russians, I assume Fisk is referring to Anatoly and Vladimir Ranskahov, or maybe others from the Russian criminal faction that those brothers represented, who would have recently arrived to New York and tried to stake a greater foothold in the criminal hierarchy of the city. This would be before everything really heated up between Fisk and those brothers in season 1. But we also know that Fisk at this point in time controlled the tracksuit mafia, most of whom were Russian, around the year of 2007, which was the flashback date of the Hawkeye series. If Fisk and Wesley are talking about Bitcoin here, though, this would have to be sometime after 2008, which would have been really the earliest anyone was using the term Bitcoin. And I think by New World, Fisk might actually just be referring to sometime even later, like 2012 or after that, because I'm assuming this would be after the Battle of New York. For many New Yorkers in the MCU, a rift in the sky, an alien invasion, and the arrival of the Avengers meant that the world had permanently changed. And in the years between 2012 and 2015, Bitcoin was more of a market that Wesley would have had actual contacts in. Instead, Wesley suggested they diversify in high-end art. This promised promise of something meaningful is what transitions us back to Fisk as he watches Vanessa get operated on. He's really thinking back on the first time he actually thought about art and what's really valuable about art and the whole world that brought him to his love. As the doctors operate, Wilson sees Vanessa's hand move and point as if she's pointing out brushstrokes on a painting to a potential buyer. Matt drags Dex through the tunnel. This whole episode is like the two of these sinners tunneling out of hell together. Matt refuses to leave behind a bleeding out Dex because he feels guilty for pushing Dex off a roof, violating his no-kill rule, a violation that started this Born Again era. Back in the flashback, Foggy and Matt have to work the weekend to transfer the McCoy files to the public defender's office. On the Landman and Zach case file boxes, you can see the names C. Garrity and Mary Lear. Mary Lear was a set director intern on this show. Cameron Garrity was the art department PA. Good on you kids getting your names in the MCU. Matt and Foggy do some kink shaming of their boss.
He's definitely into something weird.
Totally. Like feet.
What's wrong with feet? Just for the record, I don't have a problem with feet.
So confirmed, Matt Murdock likes feet. I'm not gonna begin to think about what Matt got into with She-Hulk, but something about this tracks. I really do appreciate the detail of Matt having this wired earpiece while he's using the laptop, because as a blind person, this would be one way visually impaired persons can use computers, as what's on screen is kind of read to them. Because Foggy grew up with the McCoys, he knows that the address on the warrant was slightly incorrect, meaning all evidence gathered is inadmissible. Foggy wants to use this to get McCoy's charges dropped, but Boy Scout Matt thinks that there should be consequences for his drug dealing. So from this, we've really learned that Matt's conscience as a lawyer who always defends his imperfect clients really comes from Foggy. The mercy that Foggy brings up in this scene is the mercy that now motivates Matt with Dex. Daniel sees the news of Vanessa's health status leak reported by real-life New York One reporter Annika Pergament. She appeared last episode and this episode as herself. She also appeared all the way back in 2015 in season 1 of the Netflix era, reporting on the bombings in season 1 episode 5 Condemned, the episode of Fisk and Vanessa's first date. In the flashback with Vanessa, this gallery worker seems to also have some pretty big opinions on art placement.
So same spot, different piece? Mm-hmm. I hope you know what you're doing.
I hope the art you're replacing is some iconic Banksy, because who the fuck are you, dude? The gallery window says that this place is owned by Anton Bontemps, who must be the contact Wesley mentioned, and the gallery is called Temporary Abstraction, which kind of describes the fleeting shared memories all of these characters are having this episode. Another flashback sometime later shows Fisk and Vanessa back on the beaches of their island. Behind Fisk in the background, that looks like the peak of a volcano. That would suggest that this island is somewhere in the Pacific, because you don't really see volcanic islands in the Caribbean or Atlantic Bahama region. Just as Fisk and Vanessa hold hands in their memory, they hold hands here in the recovery room. Meanwhile, instead of hot dogs like Buck suggested, Daniel learns that they're actually driving to Albany, given Michael Gandolfini's father, James Gandolfini's most iconic role is Tony Soprano, a role that Michael actually played a younger version of in The Many Saints of Newark. I feel like this subplot is meant to remind us of Silvio's unforgettable drive with Adriana in long-term parking, or any of the many instances characters on that show were taken out for drives that they don't know whether they'll ever come back from. Buck tells Daniel how when he served in the British Army, he participated in night raids at the Helmand province in Afghanistan, where they were ordered to kill opium farmers, including any male over the age of 14. So the fact that Buck already told Daniel one lie to get him out here on the road, that they're not getting hot dogs, is all part of Buck's plan to intimidate and torment Daniel to see if he really is the leak. Hey, actually in She-Hulk, we learned that Wong watches The Sopranos on HBO, so that show exists in MCU canon, and I would not be surprised if Buck buying that shovel and the power saw and waiting until the last second to tell Daniel what these are really for is Buck playing into Daniel's expectations based on TV shows that he assumes he watched. Back in the flashback, Fisk and Wesley pull up in that same season 1 SUV, you know, the one that Fisk would use to smash car doors on dudes' heads. Now to meet a younger Buck Cashman, whom Wesley now sends after Lionel McCoy. Look closely at the paperwork and wow, they got the correct 130 and a half apartment address. We intercut here from McCoy's home, where Foggy hooks him up with the $1,700 that he and Matt were saving to start their own firm, and the second chance present Matt extends to Dex in the church. Matt mentions knowing a nurse who can help. Ooh, Claire Temple reference? Or does Karen have a nurse wig that she wants to try on? Wilson Bethel just has a great monologue here, mustering more coherence than Dex has ever really had.
But the worst part is when you think you got it beat. I outran it. And then you turn a corner, bam, there it is, staring you right in the face. Only it's worse this time. And you know, it was always gonna be there.
There's just something about a Catholic church that really brings out the honesty. While that seminarian stalls the goons, Matt drags Dex into the back room where red light beams through the stained glass, making this a red-coated Daredevil controlled room. But Dex really underlines Foggy here to try to trigger Matt into leaving him behind to die.
I killed your friend, Foggy. I didn't think twice.
And Matt nearly takes a chance to escape, but he suddenly remembers confronting Foggy about giving the money to McCoy and shrugging off their delayed start of a business where they won't have to work weekends for a foot fetishist boss, and just deciding to head off with Josie's to toast something else.
What are we celebrating?
Mercy.
And it's Foggy saying mercy that echoes in Matt's mind now, that if Foggy could have mercy for a drug dealer who tormented him when they were kids, Foggy would want Matt to have mercy for the unwell man who killed Matt's best friend on someone else's orders. And now I just love how the red light of this room paints this as a site of Matt's moral victory of this episode. Decisions like this are what makes red red. Buck has Daniel drive out to quite a long-term parking looking spot in the woods, and Daniel starts begging like, take your pick of Sopranos characters. Let's say Matthew Bevilacqua. And we intercut to younger Buck as he searched the complex for a door with a half on it, so the episode sets us up to think we're gonna see two eras of Buck plug-in dudes, but it's a fake out. McCoy had escaped his apartment, and Buck reveals he brought Daniel out here to help dispose of first mate Christoffy's corpse. So we see Matt and Foggy walking off to Josie's, where Matt suggests it should be Nelson and Murdoch instead of Murdoch and Nelson, calling back that chat when they were planning to be the best avocados the world had ever seen.
Murdoch and Nelson, attorneys at law.
Nelson and Murdoch. Sounds better.
So this cuts to Matt carrying Dex's body over his shoulders down the long hall of Frank's hideout to Karen, who gives him a look that says, I need to grab my murdering wig. Vanessa wakes up after her surgery and asks Wilson for pineapple juice, which she says she doesn't like because it makes her lips tingly. Maybe she's thinking back on some tropical drink she had on that island, but her melting brain is forgetting certain memories. Vanessa downs the pineapple juice and asks Wilson to tell her the story of how they met. And we see Fisk and Wesley in the car before that moment in season 1, episode 3, when Fisk walked into the gallery. And we learn that it was not the rabbit in a snowstorm painting that he became transfixed by that she described so well to him, that there was something else he saw before that. It was him seeing her first as the subject of a painting through the frame of the window from outside. Wilson says that he was lucky to have walked into the gallery that day, but Vanessa says,
Not luck at all. It was the grand design.
There's that title of the episode again. What these two do not realize is that this is just one half of a grand design that also includes the two vigilantes they're trying to find, and all the knights that they've sent out after them. A design that goes back over a decade. But as these two laugh about how Fisk paid 3 times the listing price, Vanessa again asks Fisk to tell her a story, the story of how they, which I find to be a quite romantic final coherent thought, as it suggests that Vanessa, or whatever is left of her in there, wanted to cycle back through that first encounter in her final moments. While present Vanessa fades away, a light shines over her in the hospital bed, and in the past, light shines onto her from the rabbit in a snowstorm painting, and we're left in Vanessa's afterlife. That image of Fisk's twitching fingers caressing his cufflinks from season 1, episode 3, as she sauntered up beside him. Ever since meeting Vanessa, Fisk took comfort in the thought that someone else joined him in that snowstorm. Now he's in the storm alone. And we end with Vincent D'Onofrio emoting a level of despair that we've hardly ever seen from him in this series, as the sounds of crashing waves from their island plays us through the credits. Since all of these players had a shared past that they never truly knew how serendipitous it was, this episode argues that there may indeed be a grand design to all of our lives, and some higher power does indeed see all souls, judge all souls, and can forgive all souls. That higher power is the Watcher. Or maybe it's death, or maybe it's God, or maybe it's all three. All right, on to spoiler corner. Hey guys, remember how the first few episodes set up Heather Glenn to lose it and start wearing the Muse mask, but then she was completely absent from the past 2 episodes? And isn't it interesting how none of us missed that storyline? That's really my only speculation point for this episode. Also, get Jessica Jones in the season already. Good God. Comment down below with your thoughts on this episode, and a special thanks to one of our In Our Underground subscribers, Frederick Price, for supporting us at the executive producer level. You can get all of our exclusive bonus content by clicking on the link in the description below, or going to nrunderground.supercast.com. We are covering CinemaCon all week long with daily live streams and recap videos that will be published after the fact, so mark your calendars and be sure to join us as the big news drops, specifically the Doomsday news on Thursday. Big thanks to Studio Tech Brian Kim, New Rockstars editors Joshua Stephen Hurd and Abby Freel, and all the supporting editors for their work on this video. Follow me at EA Voss, hit that subscribe button, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye.